Many people encounter toxic cancer-causing chemicals through plastics, whether they're aware of the health risks or not. Plastic can harm our health at every stage of its life cycle. And for example, PVC, a type of plastic that is commonly used and is made with vinyl chloride, is actually a known carcinogen. So research has been suggesting that at certain levels, some of the chemicals in plastic products, another example is BPA, may cause cancer in humans. And depending on where you might live or where you might work, you're likely to be exposed to many different plastics products every single day. And today we're talking to an old friend of mine that I've known for 3 or 4 years. I've interviewed her before. I'm always fascinated with Ginny Dent. Ginny is a speaker and writer who grew up in the halls of power in Washington, D.C., and she has battled cancer, ministered around the world, and served as a counselor, educator, wellness advocate, and adjunct professor. Her book, Unleash Your God-Given Healing, 8 Steps to Prevent and Survive Cancer, was written with commentary from an oncologist and medical researcher, Dr. Robert Elliott. And it has received 6 awards, including a Golden Scrolls and Cello Awards. And her book has been featured in over 100 TV, radio, magazine, newspapers, and podcasts, including CBN, CTN, and Atlanta Live. She shares health and wellness and cancer prevention on her YouTube channel, Jen Brant, and on her website, which will all be listed in the show notes. And I also want to add that I actually send her book to many different people that are just getting cancer or trying to survive cancer, because it's a book you want to read. And I love her book. I've never had cancer, but I know what she has to offer in it, and I highly suggest anybody buy that book. So Ginny, thank you again for joining me here today. I'm so happy to see you again. You look younger than you did 3 or 4 years ago when I interviewed you, and look vibrant as always.
I wish. I'm feeling it on the inside then if I look better on the outside, because yes, I'm aging.
Well, we all are, but we
aging gracefully.
Yep, and do it as best we can. I actually just did an interview the other day about avoiding chemicals and how chemicals can also make the aging process even accelerated. So another reason to try to avoid chemicals as much as you possibly can, especially in our home where we can avoid chemicals. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah. So let's dive in a little bit, give everybody a little bit more of a snippet to your life, because you went through a horrible bout with cancer, and you stage 4, if I remember correctly, breast cancer. And you actually taught some of your doctors some things they didn't even know. And it was pretty fascinating to me, your story. But why don't you give everybody a little bit of that background before we dive into plastics?
Well, I was diagnosed with an aggressive breast cancer just 4 months after my mother died from breast cancer. So I already knew what the journey looked like, and it was kind of horrifying to say the least. But the first bad news was, oh, it's cancer, because I really didn't think it was. And the next bad news the next week was, it's aggressive. No one wants to hear that. But the third week was what really sent me over the edge, when the surgeon flashed my MRI up on a life-size screen in front of me and said, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere. And I was like, I feel perfectly fine. And so I did get that second opinion. And that second opinion showed that it was not stage 4, as they had told me. It turned out to be stage 2 in the end. But because it was aggressive, I was treated like a stage 4 cancer patient. So my main goal was to keep the cancer from coming back and to survive all of the treatments and chemotherapy, which would last for a long amount of time. The interesting thing about my case, and the doctors are seeing more of this every day, is that there's 8 risk factors for the cancer I got. I didn't have one of them. And so they did extensive genetic testing, and that showed nothing either. And so I was sitting there going, okay, something caused this. And it sent me on a quest to discover what caused my cancer and what I could do to help my doctors to beat it and prevent it from coming back. I figured this, if I can't figure out some of what's causing this, how am I going to stop it from coming back once the doctors kill it? And so that became my mission and research I did. I dove into the medical journals. I read over 50 books. I attended medical seminars, cancer conventions, you name it. I just flooded myself with information so that I could connect the dots for me and then for other people as well. Because, I didn't want to talk about cancer. I didn't want to tell people I had cancer. But when I realized I was doing everyday things that most people do every day that helped me to get cancer, then I started feeling like, yes, God is giving me a gift to share information with others so maybe they can avoid this journey, or if they're in the journey, they can help their doctors to beat it and prevent it from coming back.
Fascinating. And you went on that journey and you really dove into that. I talk about you all the time on so many different my podcasts, because I always tell people, just take it slow. You don't have to throw out everything in your home. You don't have to go through your cupboards and tear apart your house. If you want to, I would be more than happy to help you, but that's overwhelming. But that is actually what you did, right?
Well, I did. When I started learning all these things, I realized that most of the food in my pantry was GMO. It was filled with chemicals and additives and preservatives. And I was fighting for my life. I just went in and went crazy and threw most of it out and started all over again. Not that I recommend everyone has to do that, but when you're in the middle of fighting for your life, yeah, I'm probably needing to do it quicker than other people. But the interesting thing is, like I said, I had none of the risk factors that they normally talk about, but I discovered there are more risk factors than are being, let out for the public to know. And the American Cancer Society and breastcancer.org are now saying that these, endocrine disrupting chemicals may be an issue. One of them saying more clearly than the other one, but the point is, it's starting to be recognized that there are toxins building up in our bodies that contribute to many diseases, including cancer.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we're talking about here today. When you and I were trying to decide on where did we want to go with this, because we could probably pick out about 20 different topics. You said you would like to talk about plastics and cancer. Now, plastics and cancer is pretty broad. But it's very important for people to understand, because it is becoming a huge issue and worldwide and environmental issue. And there was something on 60 Minutes this past week which showed plastic and how it's building up in our society, and it's ending up in our lakes and our rivers and our oceans. And it's important for people to understand how toxic plastic is. And it's made of these chemical ingredients, and it is in our lives, everybody's lives. We can't get away from it, but there's things that we can definitely do to avoid the effects it could have on our health. But let's talk about how it is. How is it getting inside our body? Somebody said to me yesterday, he said, microbeads, they're probably all in our bodies. And I said, yeah, unfortunately they are, but we can do some things to avoid them.
Right. We definitely can. And I think what really woke me up on the plastics and made me look into it more was after my cancer journey, after I was treated and I was recovering, my coffee pot died. And so I was looking inside of it to see, was it going to work? Did I need to get a new one? Did I just need to throw it out? And I looked inside and I never knew that all these years I was boiling my water for the coffee and brewing it in plastic. It was a shock to my entire system. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I threw it out and I went to shop for a new one, went to Bed Bath and Beyond that was open at the time. And it took me all day to find a coffee pot that was all stainless steel, that I could brew in stainless steel. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is all these years I've been doing that. That's just one thing. And then about a year later, we were in British Columbia, and I was in a tea shop, and I looked down in the tea bag that the waitress gave me. It was plastic. I started dipping it in and out of my cup, and I said, this is made of plastic. And so I started wondering, well, what in the world does this do? And I said, I'm not going to order tea with a plastic bag anymore. And what's interesting is a research scientist, an engineer, decided to do research on it because she was in a tea shop, and the same thing happened to her. Her name was Natalie Tavinci, and she ended up doing the research, and it's now published in Environmental Science and Technology. And this is what she found. Steeping a single bag, a plastic tea bag, at brewing temperature, 95 degrees Celsius, released over 10 billion microplastics and over 3 billion nanoplastics into a single cup of a beverage. And so, you really have to be cautious. So it's in what we drink and what we brew. It's in the water we drink. Now, this was a shock to me because, I now filter my water, but, before I had cancer, I did not filter my water. And a report came on the TV about Columbia, South Carolina, where I spent a good 15 years of my life, showing they had microplastics in their drinking water. And then about a year later, Charleston, South Carolina showed up as having microplastics in their drinking water. And then I saw research that showed 94% of municipalities have microplastics in their drinking water. And I was like, whoa. I mean, it's just everywhere you look. Of course, when you drink from a plastic bottle, especially when it's warm, but even if it's not warm, you're getting some endocrine disrupting chemicals in your body. And as you said, there have been warnings about BPA for some time. And let's see, a research study said this: BPA may be reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen in the breast and prostate due to its tumor promoting properties. So here's the connection to cancer. And then the International Agency for Research on Cancer classifies phthalate, which is a plastic, as a possible cause of cancer. And so these things are quite alarming. And you realize it's in what we eat, it's in as well. And so when you're eating that seafood, that shrimp, that wonderful shrimp and those scallops and things that come from the ocean, you have to realize it's like a boomerang, that when we pollute and when we throw plastics away and consume plastics, they don't biodegrade. They get into our water systems. They go through our lake systems. They end up in our oceans, and they're mistaken for food by fish and other sea life. And then when we eat the fish, we get some of the microplastics. So it's just like a boomerang that comes back to us because of the way we are living. And, plastics are not going to go away, T, because we produce 300 tons a year. They're just a part of our life. And what we have to do is figure out how to reduce the things that we can control. And the things that are out there that, like storage boxes that are plastic, that are in the attic, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about what I breathe, what I eat, and what I drink. And if we can really be careful about those things, then I think we'll be in much better shape. Lee Erin Keneally, I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's a famous integrative oncologist in Los Angeles. And she said this, that plastics, like heavy metals, can build up in our bodies and damage them. And of course, because the plastics have endocrine disrupting chemicals in them, this can affect our fertility. It can affect breast cancer patients, prostate cancer patients. A lot of these hormone and thyroid issues are linked back to the fact that, we're drinking water that has these microplastics in them. And it when it builds up in your body, it can mimic estrogen.
Right. Very scary. And let me tell you something about that coffee pot that you brought up. And on a side note, the K cups is exactly the same thing. You're heating
It
up
is.
plastic. The K cups are horrible for anybody. But the coffee pot, so I had my urine tested maybe 15 years ago by Silent Spring when they were still doing body testing for chemicals. And I came back, my report came back, and the one alarming thing was BPA in my system. I'm like, BPA? I don't have plastic. I don't store in plastic. I don't drink out of water bottles. Where could BPA be coming from? And she said, well, let's go through your day. So we started out. She's like, what do you do in the morning? I said, well, we have coffee. She's like, okay, what do you make the coffee in? I said, a coffee maker. I said, I only drink like a cup, maybe a cup and a half, not even every day. She's like, look inside your coffee pot and tell me what you see. And I'm like, oh my gosh, plastic. It's heating up the plastic with the BPA, and I'm drinking it.
Yep.
So that was my eye opener too. Now, I didn't buy a coffee pot, stainless steel coffee pot. We only use a stainless steel French press. So, which, if you can use that, great. Some people don't like the headache of it. I only drink a cup a day. I think it tastes better than anything. But yes, the coffee pot, the BPA, the endocrine disrupting chemicals were inside of me, and I was flabbergasted. And of course, I retested and my BPA was gone, or at a very low level. So I'm so glad you brought that up. But those are the things that we all like. That was the eye opener to me. Like, oh my God, everything that I touch, my food touches. One of the things that drives me crazy is that people are boiling food in plastic bags because they say it's safe.
Oh gosh, yes.
I'm like, what in? I am like, how can this even be safe? So you just
and it's organic.
And it's organic too. Yes, I've seen that. I was like, what? How can this be safe for you? The plastic industry is so massive, and they are constantly lobbying to say it's safe. And the industry from the 60 Minutes show, I forgot how it's huge, and it's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, and we have a huge problem, and they're trying to say it's not. So we as consumers have to be careful of that. So I had to tell you that story because I was shocked, as you were shocked, and little
Never thought about it.
No, but I've never heard of tea bags in plastic. Oh my gosh. That
Oh
is
yeah,
wild to me. Wow.
I
So
know.
the point is, you have to pay attention to everything you use,
You
everything.
have to be your own best advocate, because what I've learned is the government is not going to do it for us.
No.
And so you've got to protect your own health. And that's just the way it is. And there's 7 categories of plastics. I made a YouTube video on this, but it's 3, 6, and 7 that are the most dangerous plastics. And 3 is the phthalates. And we've really got to be careful because it's known as the poison plastic.
Right.
And then 6 is the styrenes, like in styrofoam, especially when you heat it. You're talking about pure poisons going into you. And then 7 is the polycarbonates that are usually made with BPA. So if we can prioritize those 3 plastics, that's a big to do, because I never thought about that. You can look on the bottom of your plastic and it'll tell you what number it is. And if it's 3, 6, or 7, it's a no-no.
In the little triangle she's talking about on the bottom, just so you know.
Yeah, just that little triangle. So that's that's something to definitely look at. And here I am sitting here with my steel Yeti, and basically this steel Yeti, this is kind of thing you want to drink out of: glass, china, or steel. And for so many years, I had all this plastic stuff in my cabinets in my kitchen. I mean, I grew up on Tupperware.
Right.
We heated stuff in Tupperware in the
Yeah.
microwave. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I mean, bad, 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 bad. I just wasn't thinking. And so I just literally threw those things out. I don't drink from plastic. My grandchildren have Yetis that they drink from now, and it's to encourage them to drink water. But the point is, I don't want them drinking out of plastic either. So grandma made sure they got those for Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. And now I have water bottles that have a little case on them that we just fill up with our purified water and put them in the fridge. So glass, of course,
Yeah.
glass, as you said, stainless steel, and ceramic, I think you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
ceramic.
those are safe. And I feel like people are starting to get that a lot more. I still see kids walking around with these plastic water bottles, and God forbid that they're in their car heated up and people don't realize it. But
Right.
those
And then you
are,
look at a lot of the baby toys and
oh,
baby things and baby cups that they're out of. I would prefer they be the silicone and then the
mhm,
stainless steel. But you've
yes,
really got to hunt for things like that now because you don't want your child drinking out of plastic containers. And
yeah,
that's what all children's cups are because they have the dropsies, and you
right,
know it's going to break. So that's important, but steel doesn't break and the silicone doesn't break. So, we just have to be wiser in what we do.
yeah,
This
yeah,
was a shocker to me. We were just at a ski lodge, and in our room they had a coffee pot, and this is the first coffee pot I've seen where it was boiled in plastic, it was brewed in plastic, and this is what got me. And then the container that the coffee was collected in and held in was all plastic. And I was like,
styrofoam. Oh,
no, you got to be kidding. We didn't touch that thing.
no. And yes, exactly. That's scary, the amount that you could be drinking. So we know that, are there other ways that we can avoid plastic in our lives? I know we can replace our drinking out containers that we use,
Right.
especially
And
for hot.
don't eat off plastic
Mm,
plates and with
that too.
plastic forks and spoons. I mean, it's just, and don't microwave in
Right.
plastic. I don't use a microwave that much. It's rare that I use now. When I use it, I will use Corningware to heat things up with the top because it
Mhm.
has the glass top. So that's something to think about. When you go to a um, fast food restaurant and you order hot coffee, you want it in a paper cup.
Right.
And then there's the lid that they put on it. And I know the lid is important because you don't want to scald yourself. So you got to make a judgment there. But I ask them not to pour it as full so that I can take it without the lid because when the steam rises, it hits the lid and goes back down with the microplastics again. And I'm
Yeah.
like, so I try not to eat that way. The Yeti cups have tops you can drink out of. I'd rather do it that way. And if you were in Europe and you asked for a to-go cup, they would look at you like you were crazy
Crazy. Yeah.
because you just bring your own steel Yeti or your own China cup if you want a to-go cup because they don't give to-go cups over there, you know.
Yeah.
So, we're just not being really wise about what we do. But if we can stop it from our food, storing in containers is important. I
Mm.
used to store in a lot of plastic containers. Now I store in the glass Pyrex containers
Right.
with the silicone tops. And so these kind of things are important. Will we be able to eliminate all plastic? You go to the grocery store, you buy things in plastic. You can't totally eliminate it, but if we can greatly reduce, then our bodies will be able to handle through the filtering systems that God has given us the plastics that are, that get into our system on an everyday basis. But when we overload the body, that's when the accumulation builds up, and then our immune system cannot work as God intended because it's so busy dealing with all these chemicals.
Yes. And you brought up the to-go cups. The other thing that I do is when we go to dinner and I know I'm going to have food to go, I bring my own glass storage container. And at first I got looks like, well, we have storage, and I'm like, no, I do not want my food, my hot food, sitting in your to-go container. So I just bring my own glass container. And now they know it, certain places we go and they love it. And it's something anybody can do. You all can
Right.
throw it in a
And
bag.
when you go to a church dinner, there's going to be styrofoam cups there. So
Yes.
just bring your own Yeti and fill it up with
Yep.
water or whatever you decide to drink. You know, churches have budgets, and when they're trying to buy cups for a 500 plate dinner, they're going to buy the styrofoam stuff. They're going to
Yes.
buy the cheap stuff. You can always bring your own. I mean, everybody knows this goes with me everywhere I go, in the car, everywhere.
It's a
So I'm
great,
always got
yes.
plenty of fluid. Now, here's a point I do want to make, though. Sometimes, T, we get in these situations where we need hydration and we forgot our Yeti or our, water container. Your body's need for hydration is more important than some plastics you might get. Sometimes we're stuck where we have to grab that water bottle. Just grab it and don't worry about it. Your body's need for that hydration is more important. So I don't want people not drinking enough water because they forgot to bring their supply of water in their own container. And now they're at a church picnic and all there is water bottles. Drink it and, don't worry about it because you're not doing that on an everyday basis.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I'm going to New Orleans in a couple weeks and you need a lot of water down there. You do your best, as you said, and you can also look at the water bottles. A lot of water bottles now have BPA free. If that helps, I assume it does.
I know. I'm not sure if it helps. It may. I hope it does.
But. Yeah. Just don't leave that water bottle out in the heat and the sun, and don't let it bake in the hot temperatures. That's also key too. I know
because heat makes it leach more. There's no doubt about that. We have to be careful about when we do that, the heat from the sun, because goodness gracious, some of these water bottles are stored in warehouses where it's hot.
I know. I think about that and think about just in the South, and you're in the South too, but just them transporting all this water, and we don't know. So the best you can do is to avoid it as best possible. We do not know if it's sitting on a flatbed truck in a warehouse where there's no air conditioning, and is it getting hot? We'll never know that, unfortunately, but we can avoid using plastic water bottles as much as possible. And those water bottles are, and again, are ending up in our oceans too. So that's another thing that you can help with our environment, and not to buy them too as well.
Let me say this. I got this from the American Pediatrics Academy. It says they're encouraging families to limit their use of plastic food containers and demanding more oversight and reforms in U.S. government regulations. So even pediatricians are seeing the impact on children so much that their organization is saying something about it. So this is not just a T and a Ginny thing. This is a worldwide issue that a lot of people are speaking to. And what woke me up to it was, I got cancer and I had to look at the reasons why. And microplastics was not the only reason, but it certainly contributed to my prognosis.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned something earlier in our conversation, and you mentioned phthalates.
Yes.
And talk. Somebody might say, "What is that?" It's it's an endocrine. They're endocrine disrupting chemicals, and they're in plastic, correct?
They're in plastic, but they're also in detergents and a lot of things that we use on an everyday basis that we put on our skin. So I'm glad you brought this up because I forgot to say it's also getting in through our skin because of the products we buy that have phthalates in them. I think that it's the phthalates that are the plasticizers in these products that can also, parabens and phthalates are both endocrine disrupting chemicals. And so it's, you start reading labels on things you use in your home and you put on your skin, and you will see all kinds of words with phthalate attached to them. And, we want things. I prefer things that say no parabens, no phthalates.
Right.
So that's
right.
another way plastics are getting in through our skin. I mean, if it's not one thing, it's another.
Yeah, exactly. I know. And phthalates, and it's spelled, everybody, PHTHALATES, just so you know. And those chemicals make the plastic softer.
Right.
I would imagine sunscreen, lotion, those containers, there's probably phthalates in those to make those containers more pliable. So just I wanted you to clarify that for people, because this phthalates is becoming a much more used word that I want people to keep understanding and learning about it as they try to go down this road of living a less toxic life, and less using plastic less, because it's an educational experience for everybody. And the more you know, the more power you have to change some things. So thank you for clarifying that. So, anything else that we missed that you want to touch on with plastics and cancer, and that you can share with everybody?
Well, just understand that whatever chemicals get into your body, whether they are plastics or whether they're just other toxic chemicals, the more you hydrate, the more you exercise, and the more you sweat, the more you will remove those toxins. So it's good to sweat and move every day. It's good to get that optimum amount of hydration. Okay. And, moving and sweating go together. We actually, I get in a sauna to help get my toxic load down after chemotherapy and the other chemicals I had in before chemotherapy that I did not know I had. And all of these things help. But some of these people that run 5 miles a day, they're sweating a lot and they're getting a lot of toxins. Your skin is your largest detox organ. So
Right.
don't be afraid to sweat and, make yourself sweat. I have to make myself sweat. I can walk 2 to 3 miles with my husband. I'll barely drop one drop of sweat and he's sweating all over, but
That's me. Yeah.
kudos for him, because the more you sweat, the better it is for you. It's a great way to remove toxins.
Absolutely. Of that antiperspirant, we want to perspire. So I agree with you. We actually have a infrared sauna, and I'm very blessed to have it because it helps get the toxins out. But definitely move, get outside, whatever the case may be, move your body and get those sweat glands working on how they should be to detox, your body. So I love that you brought that up, because that's really important for everybody to understand that as well. So your book is on Amazon, and I believe they can find it on your website too, correct?
That's right. It is on my website. And then it's real important, my YouTube channel, because I've probably done 6 or 7 YouTubes on plastics, just different topics about plastics. So you can understand so much more about parabens, about phthalates, about, how to identify the plastics. I actually show you, what are the common plastics that a number 3 is, a number 6, a number 7, and the safer plastics to use. Some are safer than others, and it's good to know which ones those are, because if you're, picking up stuff in the grocery store, you want to make sure it's in the right kind of plastic.
Right, right. You know what? One thing we didn't touch on were PFAS chemicals, and that's becoming a big issue right now. When you get a pizza box, you think your pizza sits on, what does it sit on? It sits on a piece of plastic paper that's covered in or made with PFAS. PFAS are chemicals that are used to make things waterproof or grease proof. And that pizza box, they don't want the grease going through the box, so they put this piece of paper that is it's something in New York State. They just I think the law just passed, or it went into effect January 1st, that they had to outlaw those PFAS chemicals in those pizza boxes. So I'm sure you have a lot to say about PFAS chemicals.
Well, I'll tell you one thing people don't realize is some of your cookware.
Oh,
You
yep,
know, when you cook in certain things, they can have what we call PFAS or forever chemicals
right.
in them. The Teflon itself that was so popular when you and I were growing up, it
Yeah,
was the thing. And now you find out it's a forever chemical and it's not supposed to be used. So they've come up with all these other things that are nonstick instead, but I'm not sure that any of them, we may find out they're not much better.
right,
I don't know at
right.
this point, but what you cook in is important. And I had several people ask me that follow me on YouTube, can you do something on cookware? So yes, in a few weeks, that video will post. I probably did the most research on that video I've ever done for any video because it was a difficult thing to research.
Yeah,
And yeah, it's important what we cook with
yeah,
because things get in our food,
yep.
from what we cook in.
Exactly, exactly. So I'm going to put the links to specifically the plastic shows that she had on her YouTube channel. I'll put them so it's easy for people to find it in the show notes. You will also be able to find her website and a link for her book and her social media. I highly suggest you follow Ginny. Ginny, thank you so much for
Thank you, T.
yeah, I love what you're doing. You and I both do it from the heart, but we
We
are
do.
passionate. Yes. And I appreciate everything that you are providing to everybody about your story and your experience and your knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate what you're doing to keep people informed as well.
Thank you. You have a great day, and I look forward to catching up with you down the road. And one of these days, hopefully, I'll see you in person. So we will make that happen somewhere along the way at a convention or something. So thank you.
Hope